How's it going, guys? I want to make a video on Frieren, because this controversy has been going around since the anime started airing, and I think it's interesting. We're going to talk about it, alright? Now, number one, first thing I want to say is, don't harass anybody you see on here. If you do, I will seek you out myself, and you will rue the day. Number two, if you are someone who spreads purposefully hateful rhetoric, such as fascist views, you are not welcome in my community, okay? I'm gonna put those two things out there, alright? And I don't mean it as like a, oh man, you're watering down the word fascist. I'm like, no, genuinely, if you are hating on people for things that they can't help, such as the color of their skin, such as anything besides the nature of their character, then you are not welcome here, okay? But with that all out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and get into this. So this is Bent. I follow Bent because I like seeing people's opinions on stuff, alright? So, Bent said, keep seeing the discourse about demons in Frieren, and it's kind of a crucial part of their existence that they literally do not have any sort of family bonds. Literally zero. Which instantly divorces them from any sort of comparison to existing human societies. And then the person in question here that we're going to be talking about, their side of the controversy is Fawn. So they said, yes, but that's the problem. That's exactly how the right attempts to paint their opponents. Specifically creating an entire human-shaped race that fits the exact boogeyman, or boogie monster that the right warns about is a problem. Which I do agree with, however, and this is going to be my main point about all of this. The author's intent is the most important thing here. The messaging is what is important. If you're creating a race that is supposed to be a primary evil in your story, it is very important to handle it in a way that shows grace and non-hateful rhetoric. For example, Goblin Slayer. Episode 1. As many of you know, Episode 1 was very controversial on release because of the, I'm just gonna say, the not very fun scene at the end of the episode, okay? Now, Goblin Slayer is a dark fantasy, which, in this case, in order to create that dark fantasy, you need to establish to the viewers the scope of how messed up the world is. And this is how a lot of dark fantasies typically start. For example, Berserk, ReZero, things like that. Anyway, in Goblin Slayer, you are shown straight out the gate that the goblins are purely evil and are an antagonist to mankind itself. They are not shown to represent any sort of minority group, and there is no messaging that is supposed to even remotely fit them into any sort of minority group to spread hateful rhetoric. They are simply seen as a plot device to progress the story for our main character who is traumatized by goblins. Frieren is the same way. It does not spread hateful rhetoric with how it portrays the demons in the show. For example, demons are shown to have zero empathy, zero human values, their children are abandoned at birth, they have explicitly evolved to hunt humans better, they are stronger than humans, and you might even say in every other way besides, I suppose, emotionally or what have you, better than humans. They are like an apex predator in a food chain. They are like a virus to humankind. With viruses are really the only predator to humans because they actively kill humans. We actively have virus strains that are specific to humans. That is very similar to what demons are in Frieren. No emotion. They have a goal. They do that goal. That's it. Continuing on, and I'll get to what I said here in a second. I want to focus on what Bent and Fawn were talking about here first. Bent said, it's literally impossible for a human society to be built on a foundation of children being abandoned at birth, which I agree with. Fawn responded with, and why do they abandon them? Because they are written to have a lack of empathy in human bonds, whose sole desire is to infiltrate human society. Even seen taking advantage of the kindness of children to lure them in. More than kind of sounds familiar to the right. And yes, I agree with that, but again, it's how you're trying to use this element of your story. Are you using it to spread hate, or are you using it to further progress your story? Normally, you can pretty quickly tell which way it's going. So Bent said, abandoning children at birth isn't a human trait or a trait in the vast majority of living species of any kind. They subsist and survive on fantasy stakes. Fawn replied with, and adding fantasy stakes like that takes away from what I'm saying. No? In a social and anthropological sense, they're literally not human on a foundational level from the day they're born, to an extent that it's impossible to categorize their instincts and behavior according to our reality. Fawn replied with, we absolutely can. We do it with robots literally all the time. Those are more inhumane than demons, and they aren't even biological, nor can they develop emotions, but we still apply humanity to them. Trying to say they are entirely divorced from humanity because they abandoned their... and they continued on below. Because they're young, so they're too fantasy for our reality is lazy, if I'm being frank. Bent responded with, applying humanity to AI is even weirder, lol. They're completely non-sentient pattern recognition algorithms that don't even vaguely understand what they're outputting. And then Bent apparently got blocked after this interaction, which they said, getting blocked after this is crazy, lol, it's not really that serious. So, Fawn said, and let me not get started how a majority of Frieren icons I've seen be full-on Nazis. I love the series immensely, but it attracts the audience and has the dog whistles, intended or not on the author's part. And then someone down here said, you can do this framing for literally anything ever, and Fawn said, this actually isn't true, but thank you for your input. And I kind of see where Jay was going with this response, because, for example, there are a ton of different media outlets that do have the same sort of thing. For example, Helldivers. Helldivers is deeply satirical, which I actually say in my piece up here. And I'm going to get into right here. So I responded to their initial comment with, I think an important component you're missing here is the writer's intent. The way I see the demons in Frieren is most similar to mimics or doppelgangers, which are very similar thematically, and yet nobody has problems with them because they're normally depicted as physically grotesque. And I would also like to add to that, they are also seen as so obscenely non-human that it would be difficult to even try to place them in that sort of right-wing rhetoric, making minorities look evil, you know? And I think part of that also comes from the fact that a lot of that stuff has just been around for so long. It's been folklore, it's been written in stories for so long that even if there was evil intent to begin with, it's lost on people now. Moving on though. So, Fawn said, author's intent, this is art, my man. Also, I already did consider the author's intent. Please read the whole thread first before replying next time. But, and their argument kind of seems all over the place. Like, I can't really see a clear vision of what they're trying to argue here, because it seems like they're trying to argue like, oh, it's bad because the messaging is bad. But then they go back on that by clarifying, no, I'm not saying that the show is bad, I love the show. I'm saying the messaging is bad. And then I'm telling them, well, it's the author's intent, and you can tell that the messaging isn't being used in that way though. And then they respond with, I already know what the author's intent is, I've already considered it. And I'm sitting here like, then what, like, what part of this are you not getting? I don't understand. Anyway, I continued with, series like My Little Pony and Helldivers have similar fans, and they are a minority of the fan base. Let me make this clear. Helldivers is blatantly satirical with its fascist messaging, yet according to you it would be just as bad because the messaging is there regardless of intent. Focus on the evil people praising the evil ideas rather than the art. If you want to get technical, Frieren's demons are unique. They are explicitly described to hold 0 human values, evolved to look human, evolved to communicate with humans, all for the purpose of killing humans. We know what ancient demons who weren't evolved look like, which I put in parentheses 𝐒𝐤, which was the ancient demon that was sealed away, and then the seal was weakening, so they had to go and kill him. I'd also like to remind you that in every instance a demon was given a chance in Frieren, they repaid the kindness through torture and murder. The old ones in Blood Sea are comparable in every way. Same bloodlust, same capability of mimicry. They're simply an embodiment of evil, which is true. They're an embodiment of evil that is supposed to be a direct antagonist to the protagonist and be something of a hurdle for the protagonist to overcome as part of the story. They are a literary element. So, Fun responded again with, firstly, I don't think you understand what you're talking about, otherwise you wouldn't use those 2 series as an example, because yes, it still applies. You're also saying I'm calling something bad when I explicitly state I love the series. Still do. Now, I didn't exactly get what they meant by I don't think you understand what you're talking about, otherwise you wouldn't use those 2 series as an example. I used Blood Sea as an example because it is extremely comparable to Frieren, the only difference being, I mean, of course, you know, how the story is told. But the old ones in Blood Sea are quite literally grotesque monsters. They are similar in every way to, like, say, Chaos from Warhammer. And yet you don't see anybody saying, oh, this is fascist rhetoric in Warhammer because they're demonizing Chaos. Usually they say that for other things, like, you know, the humans of Warhammer very actively live in a fascist society. But that's a conversation for a different time. No one looks at Chaos in Warhammer and they go, oh, the humans hate Chaos. That's fascist messaging, because any rational person is going to look at Chaos and be like, yeah, you know, the embodiment of disease and plague is an expressly evil thing. Like, there's no way around that. Because disease and plague do not give a flying fuck who you are or what you've done. They are simply just things there to kill, spread, and deteriorate everything. Anyway, they continue with, you can write about fascism in fiction, it's literally allowed. Secondly, writing anything to be the embodiment of evil is just writing fascism, especially if it's a humanoid species that can communicate with humans and think independently. Every single time you guys compare creatures from other series, they're always just that, creatures. But that's the thing that this person is not getting. Demons in Frieren are creatures. They are literally like eldritch monsters that have adapted to better hunt humans. It is physically and most realistically like a food chain. You could compare the demons in Frieren to being like a virus for humans, because that's really like one of our only predators on Earth are viruses. Viruses don't have brains, they don't think. Their sole goal is to infect, spread, and kill. That is it. Very, very similar to what demons are in Frieren. And there is no other alternative messaging like, oh, the demons are in Frieren are actually supposed to be like this minority group. Like, no. And especially no normal person thinks that way. Like, if you're looking at it from the standpoint of and you're saying this is bad messaging because someone on the extreme right is going to use it to demonize people, it's like, well, yeah. And you know what you do to that? You know what you do for that? You look at those people and you... Well, there's a couple of things you can do to them. But you look at those people and you go, you should be in a padded cell, you absolute moron. You absolute ninny. You stupid piece of shit. Like, what is wrong with you? How could you look at a functioning, like, you know, how could you look at any sort of minority group and be like, these are comparable to inhuman, non-empathetic, just completely out of the realm of reality beings, you know? And that's why it's an extremist view. Normal people don't think that way. Okay? And again, like I was saying before, it is author's intent. Is it being used to spread hateful rhetoric? Or is it being used as a literary element to give the protagonist a struggle that they have to deal with? You can do it one or the other, you can do it as both. But in Frieren, it is not being used as a way to spread hate. If anything, it is giving the viewer something that they can unify with the protagonist over, and something that they can look forward to for future encounters. For example, the thing that happened in the village with the demon child. That was being used as a literary element to make you feel uneasy and worried for the villagers, because you as the viewer know that demons are incapable of living with humans because they are programmed solely to kill. So, moving on. One continues with, and people seem to say, oh, they evolved that way specifically to kill humans. We evolved this way specifically to hunt animals too, but the fact they developed sentience and a language the same as human speech is significant. And this is kind of funny to me, because if you were to give like a virus human speech, all that would change is they're gonna go, oh yeah, you poor bitch, I'm gonna infect you and then kill your whole bloodline. Yeah, that's right. I'm about to tear your cells apart and replicate within them, you know? That thought is kind of funny to me. But also, like, what they said here with, we evolved this way specifically to hunt animals too, it's like, you are so close to getting it. It is like, they are like an apex predator hunting their prey. That is what they are. That is what they are portrayed as. That is why they are the primary antagonist of the show. It is supposed to inspire feelings of worry, feelings of hope, feelings of all kinds of different emotions in you. And the one that Frieren doesn't even really touch all that much on is the hate aspect. Because while I was watching Frieren, even I never really sat there and was like, man, I hate the demons. And part of the reason is because the impact of the demons killing humans was much less of that compared to a show like Goblin Slayer, where, and that could be for a bunch of different other reasons as well, like, you know, framing of the shots in the anime and dialogue, all kinds of different stuff. Goblin Slayer did it very well. They did it very, very well. He established, like, these creatures are dangerous, even though they are normally seen by other adventurers as being, oh, you know, like, this is like beginner adventurer work, I don't need to worry about this, and then they get slaughtered. But anyway, I replied to them with, this is literally a case where you're just looking too deep to create problems where there exists none. Normal people don't watch Frieren and go, ah, sweet fascism. They go, oh, the demons are clearly the antagonists and primary evil to drive the story. Which is true. They have a demon king. They literally have an army that's marching just simply to annihilate the human race. And this is another thing I wanted to bring up. Why is it Frieren that people are trying to spin some sort of narrative with this for, when there are plenty of other anime out there that do the exact same thing, and not even anime, just things in general. Like, holy shit. Like, for example, Godzilla universe. A lot of the humans see Godzilla or any of the kaijus at all as being just blatantly evil. And it's the few humans in the series that actually try to help Godzilla that end up, you know, changing people's minds. Would you say that that is still fascist propaganda that's trying to spread hate? No. Because you would see Godzilla and you'd see all of the humans on Earth being like, man, fuck that guy, and you'd be like... like, your first thought is not gonna be, oh man, these are Nazis trying to get me to hate minorities. Like, no. Like, what, dude? It's kind of like, yeah, you can see where the messaging can sort of lead that direction, but my man, trying to be obtuse about it isn't going to help anybody. You know? Anyway, I continue with, normal people can separate the fictional world of Frieren and its treatment of a clear and present evil created purely as a plot device from the evils of fascist ideologies in real life, which I still believe is true. Even though going on Twitter, you wouldn't really see a lot of that, because on Twitter, blue check marks get paid to say the most heinous and evil shit that you've ever seen in your life. Which is partly why I really like using Blue Sky. But yeah, I pretty much just wanted to make this video to go over the situation a little bit and also give my thoughts on it, because in my opinion, I think that yes, the messaging is there, but it's not there with the intent of being that messaging, you know? It's similar to, like, what's like a good analogy I'm trying to think of right now for this? Yeah, I can't think of one. But my entire thing was just, you have to have media literacy and look into it and be able to discern whether something is being written in a way that is trying to spread some sort of propaganda, either with hateful rhetoric or like what have you. Yeah, you have to be able to discern that kind of shit. Watching Frieren and coming to the conclusion that it is an anime that is trying to spread fascist propaganda because of how they treat the demons in the show, despite giving you every single instance and at every single corner where they are not only not comparing them to any sort of minority group, but as their own thing, to the point where they even tell you they have zero relation to humans at all besides hunting them. Like, if you can't discern that, then you need to do some more reading or something. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Shit. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. This is probably just one big ramble, and half of it probably didn't make sense, because I don't really go on a script for any of this shit. I kind of just sit here and talk about my thoughts. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. And if you have arguments for or against whether Frieren is using the demons in its world as like a means of spreading hate or creating some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. Screw it. I'll see you guys later.